So we finished off and we were looking at Exodus chapter 26. And we were looking at Exodus chapter 26 and we were going to start from verse 8. We were actually looking at verse 8 and then I stopped and I said we will do this then from the next session. And so we are in Exodus chapter 26. And we are going to look at verse 8, and it says, "And the length of each curtain is 30 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits, one measure of 11 curtains." So we were having to look at these numbers. So we're looking at the fact that it is 30 cubits. So we will look at the number 30, we will look at the number 11 because there are 11 curtains. So we looked at the fact that when we looked at that Exodus chapter 26 verses 7 that talks about goat's hair, and that goat's hair is the word ez, which is the word for female goat. So when we looked at that word ez, which talks about a female goat, it really talks about the fact that that's the goat nature of our flesh nature, that is strong-willed, that is not always wanting to submit, and that is when we came to the number 11, that then the number 11 talks about inner conflict, and we looked at that number 11 as being the number of inner conflict. And we looked at the fact that there were 11 disciples that remained, and it represents our inner conflict to come into Yahuwah's perfect order. So the number 11 is that inner conflict in us that comes for us to be able to come into that perfect order, the Father's perfect order. And that our inner conflict that's within us will kick up against our flesh nature. And then it talked about 30 cubits. So the length of the curtains is 30 cubits. This is the number of the perfection of fulfillment of the natural man. So this is the number of the perfection of the fulfillment of natural man, who is saved by the grace of Yahuwah. It is the maturity of when the Levites are released into service in the temple. It was also the age that Yeshua started his ministry, and also the age of when David started reigning as being able to be king over the fullness of the house of Israel. And we see that this is the number. 30 pieces of silver was what Yeshua was sold out for, 30 pieces of silver. And this is where we've got to understand that it is the fulfillment of the natural man. It's when Yeshua was going to be able to be sold for us, to be able to come to the end of that he was given to us by the grace of Yahuwah, to be able to come and bring a perfection, a fulfillment to redeem us. And so this is the number when there is maturity. It's the number of maturity. It's when, like I said, the priests would enter into the fullness of the service at the age of 30. So Yeshua also started his ministry at this age. And so if we go look now at Exodus chapter 29, verses 9, it says, "And you shall join the 5 curtains by themselves and the 6 curtains by themselves, and you shall double over the 6 curtains at the front of the tent." So here we see that the number 6, what is the number 6? It's, when you work through this, and we're really going to work through this and look at all these different numbers, And, we could just read through all of this, and we could just, put this chapter behind us, and we don't really need to look into all of this, because what is the point of looking at all of this? Let us just, leave all of this. And, so what if it's 11 curtains? So what if it's 30 cubits? And so what if there's another 6 curtains? What is this all about? But you know what? If the Father gives us numbers, then we need to understand this is the very thing that He's got me. This has been the walk that I have walked with Him, because He opens my eyes to numbers. Numbers are very important to the Father, and He speaks to me many times through numbers. And so, you see that this is important to Him. He didn't just decide, let's just take a number at random. Let's just take the number 15, or let's just take the number 25, or let's just take, He didn't just take a number at random. If He chose a number, there is a reason for choosing the number that He chooses, because every number that has been chosen is a representation of that which we are going to see, a characteristic that pertains to us, that pertains to Yeshua, that pertains to this tabernacle, which was a shadow, which was the shadow that He gave us about how we were to worship Him. He needed a earthly tabernacle in which He wanted to be worshipped. But today, we are to become the tabernacle that carries His presence. He does not want to be dwelling in a house made of man's hands. He wants to be dwelling in now an earthly tabernacle. So therefore, we've got to understand, just like Yeshua became the fullness of this tabernacle, so we need to become the fullness of a tabernacle that is going to carry the Father's presence. So our very essence of who we are and how we're supposed to walk, and everything of what He's laying out of here, representing our Messiah, the one who's gone before us, the one who takes us by the hand, the one who leads us every step of the way. He's the one that has already come to show us the way, so that we can become that tabernacle that will carry His presence. And so when we look at this number 6, because the number 6 is important for us to understand. So when we look at this number 6, and it says, the number 6 is representation of the flesh. Man was created on the 6th day, the flesh man. Man without the presence of Yahuwah. It represents the human labor, the spiritual imperfection. So there were going to be 6 curtains, because that was going to have to be the dividing curtains that were going to divide us, the different sections, the holy place from the Holy of Holies. And these curtains were going to be 6 for us to understand that man's limitation. Man was created out of the flesh. Man is a flesh being. But without the presence of the Father, we have an imperfection in ourselves. And it's about human labor. When Yeshua came, the curtain, when Yeshua died, that curtain to the Holy of Holies was torn, because now He's made a way for us to boldly come before His throne. We may all enter in to that throne. We may boldly come and stand before Him. But before, we were behind a curtain, and nobody was able to go into that Holy of Holies, only the high priest. But the Father has now made a way. Many are called, few are chosen. Many are called, few choose. We must be those that choose to want to come into that place of the Holy of Holies. But for us to be able to come there, we must understand the thing that separates separates us from that place is the number 6, is the man. It's the flesh. It's the man that was created, flesh being. That flesh is what keeps us from that Holy of Holies. It's our flesh that keeps us from coming into the fullness of walking in the fullness of the Spirit and walking in the fullness of the Word. And that is why we see these curtains divided in the 6. Because it's the nature of man, the imperfection of that spiritual imperfection. It's the imperfection that is there, that we need the fullness of His Ruach dwelling within us, that gives us the access, that helps us to crucify our flesh, that helps us to lay down the flesh man so that we may enter in. Then we read, and then it speaks about, so let's continue reading. And he says, and you shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is outermost in the set, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain of the second set. So it's got 6. It's made up of 6 curtains, and then they got 50 loops. We already looked at the significance of the 50. Let's look at 50 again. 50 is calculated by the fulfillment, 10 fulfillment, 5 grace, fulfillment of grace. You see, we need His grace. His grace has come to us so that we may lay down our flesh. It's by grace. It's by His grace. It's not a work of our flesh. We have to willingly lay ourselves down. He gives us the grace, the decisions that we need to make to lay our lives down. So it's the fulfillment of grace of Yahuwah, representing true deliverance through Yeshua. So you see, Yeshua has come to deliver us so that we may enter in to that place with Him. It is true freedom that is obtained by the grace of Yahuwah, and that we receive authority of a son of a king. It's the number for leadership and authority. So that is everything that the Father gives us. That's why there's 50 loops that goes with those 6 curtains, because it's everything that He has fulfilled. The grace. It's the grace and the fulfillment. It's the grace, the 5 grace, and the 10, which is fulfillment. And this is what He gives us. So do you see, everything that He gives us is going to be symbolic of that which He's bringing together as He's putting this tabernacle together. So we see that in our flesh nature, we battle to stand before a holy Yah. And we want to be like we want to be like Adam and Eve in the garden that want to hide from the Father because of our flesh nature. Because our flesh nature falls and because our flesh nature is weak. But yet, the grace that He has given us, His grace is sufficient for us to come boldly before Him, confessing our sin, laying down our lives, and saying, Father, I see that in myself I have this evil flesh, wicked nature. Oh my goodness. Don't we see that? We see our imperfections. But His grace comes to help us. It's not by might, it's not by power, but it's by His Spirit that has been given to us so that we can walk out the fullness by His grace. Because you cannot do it of your flesh. Beloveds, we cannot do things of our flesh because the flesh man battles. But the more we surrender our flesh, the more Abba is able to come and lead us and guide us and lift us on eagle's wings to run the race with Him. So, That's why we strive. We strive and we strive. We strive in our flesh. The Father doesn't want us to strive in the flesh. And that is why we get disappointed. Because it looks like He's not doing anything. Because He wants us to surrender to Him and allow Him to have His way. And I think that is the most difficult thing. This is not an easy thing. You know, it's so easy to speak a word and say, oh, we must just surrender. Beloveds, those words are not flippant words. They're not little flippant words. They're not words that we can just speak and say flippantly, oh, just surrender. Just surrender. Those are not, those words, I have understood, carry weight. It carries a lot of weight. And it carries a lot of pain, because sometimes it's a painful thing to surrender to the Father, because we don't really know how to do it at the best of times. And it's so difficult. And I really understood that yesterday when I stood in front of one of the men at the soup kitchen. And the Father just gave me a vision as I was praying for him. And I saw this huge mountain. And I saw how this man was trying to climb up this mountain. He was trying everything. He was trying to go up this side and that side and going around it and looking at every angle. And the more he climbed, the more he came down. And I said to him, aren't you tired? You are exhausted. You have tried to climb this mountain all in yourself, and this mountain stands before you. And the more I spoke, the more the tears were running down his face, but so uncontrollably. And I said, you are exhausted. Because you've been trying so hard. Your whole life, you've tried so hard to climb this mountain, and you're just not getting there. And the Father just says now, can you just let go? Just let go. And as you do, He's going to put you on top of an eagle, and He's going to carry you on those eagle's wings, and He's going to bring you to the top of that mountain which you have tried your whole life to get on top of, but you haven't made it. And this man was just so broken as the Father was speaking directly into his spirit man. And then I realized, when I saw that struggle that he was going through, I realized how difficult it is for us to surrender our flesh man. Even when Yeshua has done everything for us already, we will still try and strive in our flesh. So I don't speak those words flippantly in saying we must surrender, because it comes with a price. But the price, when we do, is freedom, which is what I saw upon this man's face eventually when this burden was being taken off him. The freedom that came on his face to say, that's what I need to do. So if there are any of you that may be yourself so desperately trying to enter into that holy of holies place in your flesh, I say to you today, it's not going to work in your striving out of your flesh. You will come to that place when you finally lay down those things that He's asking you to lay down. He doesn't tell you to do everything in one go. Oh my goodness, He knows we can't handle that. But that little area that He's saying, lay it down. Just be obedient. And then guess what? He takes you to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. He cannot clean us all up in one go. He doesn't do that. We couldn't handle it. He's so gentle. He is so gentle that he takes us in a gentle way because he knows what all we can handle. So we praise Abba, we look at now, we continue reading, and he says, "And you shall make 50 bronze hooks, and put hooks into the loops, and join the tent together, and it shall be one." So here we see that he's going to make 50 bronze hooks. So what is the significance? We've looked at the 50. Do you see how many times 50 comes up? 50 comes up a lot. And this is for us to understand that he's saying that there's a completion, that there's a fulfillment, that there is a grace, that there is a deliverance, that Yahushua is our deliverance. He's the one who's going to deliver us. And we have to understand this color bronze. What does this color bronze represent to us? What is this color bronze? Because the color bronze represents, once again, our human nature, as I've been explaining. Once again, it's the 50 that is it's the fulfillment, and it's the grace, and it's to be able to receive the authority that Yahushua has given us. And it's the true deliverance. It's representing true deliverance that He's given us of this flesh nature. It's representing the justified human nature of Yahushua that has been sanctified for us to remove the penalty of our sins. Because bronze has to do with self. It has to do with our rebellious, stubborn nature. Why? Because bronze is a metal that is firm, that is strong, that is lasting. And so our flesh nature can sometimes be strong and it's firm. But Yahushua has become the one that is our strength. He's the one that is firm. And we need to be pliable in His hand. It is also a metal that has been purified. And so therefore it also represents purification. So it's a metal that is, so Yahushua is the one that has purified us. He's our purification. So it is a color of self-humbling, that we need to humble ourselves. And that's why I was saying it's this surrenderedness, it's this humility, it's this humbleness to realize who you are in your flesh nature and who He is. And that in your flesh nature, you have no authority, you have no power, you have nothing. And it's all He that comes and raises us up. He's the one that has come to sanctify us. He's the one that has justified us. That is what this bronze color is representing. And the overlapping part of the rest of the curtain of the tent has half curtain that remains shall hang over the back of the dwelling place. And the curtain on the side and the cubit on the other side of what remains of the length of the curtains of the tent is to hang over the side of the dwelling place, on this side and on that side, to cover it. So we see how this curtain, everything is going to cover this dwelling place, this tent of meeting, this tabernacle. And then in verse 14, he says, and you shall make a covering of a ram's skins. You shall make a covering of ram's skins, dyed red for the tent, and a covering of fine leather about above that. So now we look and we see the covering of the ram skins. This is the ram, the very first time a ram is being mentioned in the Bible. The first time that a ram gets mentioned in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 23. Let's go look at Genesis chapter 23. In Genesis 22 verses 13. So let's look at Genesis 22 verses 13. And it says, "And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in a bush by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for an ascending offering instead of his son." So here we see that the first time that the ram is being mentioned, it is being offered instead of Isaac. So at the same time, the ram is being, when we talk about a lamb, it's a year-old lamb, but a year-old lamb is almost become like a ram. It's not a little baby lamb. It's a year-old. A year-old lamb is not a little, it's not a little baby lamb as what we would understand a little baby lamb. So we see that Yeshua would be offered. The ram represents Yahuwah's provision and substitution. A ram also symbolizes wisdom and discernment. So this ram that was offered, the ram was offered. So already when we see the story of when Abraham is going to offer Isaac, the whole story there, when the ram gets caught in, when he gets caught in the thicket that he's caught, and then he goes and catches the ram and then sacrifices the ram. The ram is symbolic. When he saw that, when he was about to kill his son, the whole story is, if he's going to crucify Isaac, either the father is going to have to resurrect him because he's the promised son. So just as Yeshua becomes that ram that was offered for us, so that we can now be able to be the sons and daughters of Yahuwah that are going to be able to raise up, because he became the one that offered his blood. So the whole thing is in the color of what? It's all dyed red. So the ram stands for sacrifice. It stands for the sacrifice that he has made. It stands for the redemption, that Yeshua would become the perfect sacrifice, that Yeshua would become he was coming to give us redemption. And it's the atonement, once again, symbolic of Yeshua. It is also symbolic of Yahuwah's provision, because at the point of when the ram was going, when he was about to kill, sacrifice, well, he wasn't crucified, Isaac, he was going to be sacrificed. At the time that Isaac was about to be sacrificed, he made a provision, and he provided a ram. And that was for us future to understand that his firstborn son was going to be able to become the ultimate sacrifice, so that we too could be able to have the redemption, that we could be able to have the atonement that was going to come through his blood. So when we look at the red is for the blood, red dyed. So it tells you that it's got to be red dyed. because it's the ram, symbolic of his sacrifice and redemption and his atonement, and it is the color red for the blood. And so if we let's go look at Hebrews, we'll look at Revelation 1 verses 5. Let's go to Revelation 1. In Revelation 1 verses 5 it says, "And from Yeshua Messiah, the trustworthy witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the ruler of the sovereigns of the earth, to him who loved us and washed us from our sins in his blood." So he came to wash us clean from our sins by his blood. Then, if we look at Revelation chapter 12, verse 11, once again, the blood is going to speak, and it says, "And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their witness, and they did not love their lives unto death." And so there we see the blood becomes a witness for us of what he's done in the atonement and the redemption, as he became the perfect sacrifice. And then if we go look at Hebrews chapter 10. In Hebrews chapter 10 it says, "For if we sin purposely," from verse 26, "For if we sin purposely, if we sin purposely after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment and fierce fire, which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the Son of Yahuwah underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was set apart as common, and insulted the Spirit of grace?" So the Spirit of grace is not a lawlessness. The Spirit of grace is the Spirit that has been given to us because of the atoning blood that has been given. So the blood has not been given to us so that we can continue in our sinful way. The blood comes and washes us clean so that we can walk the set-apart walk with him. That's why he says, "Be holy as I'm holy," because he wants set-apartness. So then we continue to read, and he says in verses 15, "And for the dwelling place you shall make the boards of acacia wood, standing up 10 cubits in the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits with the width of each board." So if we have a look at that acacia wood, we've already had a look at acacia wood before, but let us go look at acacia wood again so that we can have a look at the meaning of the acacia wood. So the acacia wood is a wood that is hard and dense, and it is resistant to water and to decay and insect damage. This is symbolic of our Messiah. He has to be strong. He had to endure. He would be scourged, persecuted, but he was going to have to stand strong. Yeshua had to endure, so we will have to endure trials and tests and resist the things that the world will bring against us, which will be all the temptations and the testing and the trialing. Because just as he was tested, just as he was tried, so we will be tested, so we will be tried. And this is why we have to understand, as he was persecuted, so that he could stand strong, so will we be persecuted, so that we can stand strong. And this is why it's going to be made of acacia wood, because acacia wood is a wood that is durable, it's hard, it's dense, and it resists. And so we need to resist the enemy. We need to submit to Yahuwah. Resist the devil, and he will flee. So we need to understand. We need to resist the devil. We need to first submit to Yahuwah. So see, everybody tries to go to war with the devil. It's not in the warring with the devil. The devil will flee when you submit to Yahuwah. So do you understand the significance of the submission and of the surrender, of when we surrender? Because the minute we surrender, that's why the devil doesn't want us to surrender. That is why there's such a struggle that goes on within us. Why is there such a struggle that goes on within us? Because the minute we have to submit and surrender to the Father, then we resist the devil and then he flees. So do you see why there's such a battle going on in the flesh? There's a battle going on in the flesh because the enemy doesn't want you to surrender. Because the minute you surrender, he's going to lose ground. He has to flee. Because he no longer has control over your life in that area, and he has to leave you. But we do not understand the significance. So we try to go to battle with the devil. We are not supposed to be going to battle with the devil. We are supposed to be submitting to Yahuwah. The same as people want to put on the armor of Yahuwah, put on the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, put on this like it's some kind of a magic potion. No, it's when you put on the helmet, you know the helmet is on. So you take every thought captive. So you guard your ears. You guard your discernment. You must discern. You guard your eyes. You guard your mouth. You are guarding it by putting on a helmet. You're not just going to sit and do a lip service over here. You have to resist. You have to submit to Yahuwah. How do you submit? Submit to the word. Casting down every vain imagination that exalts itself above the word of Yahuwah. Therefore, you've got to cast down every one of those thoughts that are going there by putting on the helmet of salvation. Say, I have the helmet of salvation. This thought is not from you, Abba Yahuwah. This thought is casting it down, pulling it down. Then you resist the enemy and he needs to flee. You got your helmet on. Putting on the belt of truth. Stand for the truth. So it doesn't help us to be able to sit and we put this on and we think that this is some kind of a magic potion. The word must be alive and active, working in us. So he works it in us, both to will and to do his good pleasure. That is what he wants. So this is why we understand that there is going to be an acacia wood. And the acacia wood is going to have to be durable. It's going to have to stand. And so let us continue to read. And he says, and then 10 cubits in the length of a board. We've covered 10. So let's look at 10 again. We did it last time, but we'll do it again. Let's look at number 10. 10 is the number for fulfillment. It is the number 10 refers to divine perfection. It can also refer to the fullness of difficulty or tribulation, tested and tried and proved faithful. We see in the 10 plagues, the 10 commands, the 10 virgins, the tithe. It also represents righteousness. It also represents divine order, law, order, government, restoration, divine spiritual order, completion, fulfillment. So all of this is for the number 10. Then 10 tenons in each board, for 2 tenons in each board for binding one to another. Do the same for all the boards of the dwelling place, and you shall make the boards for the dwelling place 20 boards for the south side. So 20 boards. What is the number 20 symbolic of? The number 20 is the number for reward. It's a double portion. It's a double portion of number 10. It's the double portion of that completion. It's the 20. So it's the fulfillment or completion. So it's the double portion of the fulfillment and the completion. So it's double. It's a reward that you get. The completion brings reward, but there will be difficulty and spiritual warfare to claim the reward. So you're going to have to be tested. You're going to have to be tried, and then you receive the reward. So there's going to be a testing. There's going to be a trying. But we will receive the reward. So you will be ready to enter into spiritual warfare. So this number is a number that you will be ready. You don't need to worry about it. You will be tested, you will be tried, but you will be proved faithful. So you will be ready to enter into that spiritual warfare. You will be ready to be able to stand for the Father's kingdom. And so it's a time of trials and testing, but you are ready for it. You will overcome. Exodus 26, let's continue to read number 19. And make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. So, now we look at the number 40. What is the number 40 symbolic of? The number 40 is the 40 years in the wilderness. Joshua was tested 40 days. The period of testing in the wilderness. So after 40 years comes maturity. After 40 days, Joshua was able to go into his ministry. After he had been tested in the wilderness 40 days. And the Israelites in the wilderness 40 years. That brings them to the maturity. It brings us into the maturity of understanding and ready to rule. It is the number for completeness and conclusion. So it's a time of a period that concludes a period. So the same as the water came upon the earth for the 40 days that water was with Noah's ark. And then it was the 40 years in the wilderness. 40 days that Joshua was in the wilderness. So it's a period of a time of conclusion. So, even if we go through difficulties, we've got to understand nothing lasts forever. There is a time when that testing and trying will come to an end because the Father is faithful and He will never try us more than we can bear. There will be a way out. He does give us a way out. So what does the color silver represent? The color silver symbolizes riches and wealth. It is the color for redemption. It is the color for truth. It is atonement and it is purity. So the trying of man's hearts. So you see, the 40 years, the number 40, for the trying, for the testing, for the trialing. It's the period that you got to go through so that you will be refined, so that there will be an purity, so that there will be a redemption, so that you can come out with the riches and the wealth, so that you may be able to be coming out in the truth. When we go through much trial and much test, Father is testing us and trying us in the truth. It's easy to turn around and say, oh, I believe that. But it's another story to be able to actually write the test to see if you do believe that which you say you believe. So it's one thing to be able to say, oh, I believe in the scripture. It's another thing to be able to have that scripture to be put to the test to see if you will stand for that which you say you believe in. So you will only know truly where you stand with the truth of His word until you are tried. And that is why the Father many times brings the trials and the tests to prove us. What did He do? Let's just see as this is coming to me now in Deuteronomy. Let's go see Deuteronomy chapter 8. It's just coming to me now as the Father's giving me this. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, what did He say? Listen to what He says. He says, God to do every command which I command you today. We're reading from verse 1. God to do every command which I command you today, that you might live and shall increase and go in, and shall possess the land of which Yahuwah swore to your fathers. So you see, we got to possess our promised land. And so we got a God to do every one of His commands. We got a God to keep His commands so that we may go in and possess the land. Then he says, and you shall remember that Yahuwah your Lord led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness. What was he doing? Let's look and see. So why do we go through the trials and the tests? He leads us in the wilderness, tries and tests us so that we are to guard his commands. Now listen to what he says. All these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, to prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you will guard his commands or not. So you see, it's easy to turn around and say, oh, I'm not going to eat that pork. I'm not going to eat that pig. But you know, beloveds, when the day is going to come, when there's going to be no food, and all of a sudden you're going to be on a place, and there's going to come a hedgehog, or there's going to come a whatever animal that's going to come, or a rabbit, one of these huge hares, like we see these huge hares over here on this farm. Huge, massive hares. A rabbit, a huge rabbit with big ears. And then you see these huge, once we saw this huge hedgehog. Huge. What will be the temptation? Well, I don't have food. And this thing is going to come in my way. What you going to do? You're going to shoot it, kill it, and eat it? So you see, it's in that place of when the test and the trial comes that we will be tested to see if we are going to be obedient to his commands. And that's why he says he humbles you to prove you, because that proof is to test, to try, to put to the proof, to test. And then humble is ana. That's the word for ana, which is to afflict, to oppress, to chasten, to deal harshly with. My goodness, this is talking about what the Father does to us. But then we want to get upset because we don't understand. So why does he put us through these things? Because he will prove us. And already, he's giving us in the tabernacle. He says, you need to become a tabernacle that can carry my presence. But you've got to understand, for you to be this tabernacle that's going to carry my presence, you too are going to have to be tested and tried. You too are going to have to go through this fire. You too will be humbled. You too will be afflicted. You too are going to have to be oppressed. You're going to be chastised. He says he chastises those whom he loves. So yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, which I haven't spoken to for many years. And so we got chatting for a long time, and it's been years. And if I listen to her laugh and I listen to my laugh and she says, why is it that we serve the Father, we love the Father, and I don't understand. These people in the world get away with everything, and we get away with nothing. And we just go through more difficulties and more difficulties and more difficulties. And I said, well, you know what? He's strengthening us for whatever it is that's to come. And he chastises those whom he loves, because he doesn't want rebellious children. He wants children that will submit and surrender to him. And so we understand that this color silver is a color of purity. It's a color of atonement. It's a color of truth. So we're going to have to go through the purification in order to see if we stand for truth. Because if we go to Psalm 66 verse 10, let's go to Psalm 66 verse 10, and it says, for you, O Eloah, have proved us. You have tested and tried us. You have refined us as silver is refined. So you see, that's why it goes with the number 40. So the silver goes with the number 40, because the silver and the number is going to be able to come together to symbolize everything of what the Father is wanting to be able to reveal to us in what he's wanting us to go through. We will be tested, we will be tried to be able to bring the completeness in us, to be able to come to a place of maturity and understanding with the number 40, so that we may be tested and tried. Our hearts must be tested and tried, and they need to be refined by silver, as silver is refined, so that he can bring out the riches and the wealth. Not just the riches, physical riches, yes, he will give us the physical riches, he will give us the physical wealth, but it's the richness of his presence, of his word, the wealth of the word. And so now when we read, let's read Exodus chapter 22 to 24. And he says, and for the extreme parts of the dwelling place westward, make 6 boards, and make 2 boards for the 2 back corners of the dwelling place, and they are double beneath, and similarly they are complete to the top, to the one ring, so it is for both of them. They are for 2 corners. So here we see the number 2. So this is now bringing in the number 2. 2 boards. This is now speaking of unity, of a marriage, of uniting. 2 come together and they become one. So that which belongs together, it's a partnership, it's a promise, and there will be an adding to one. And this is part of a witness. You need 2 or 3 witnesses to confirm a thing. So it's part of witness. And so it's faithful and it's testimony. That's the number 2. It's part of a unity. It's part of a marriage. It's part of where the Father wants to become one with us. He wants to be in unity with us, just as Father and Son. And that's why Joshua speaks and he says, we are one flesh. The Father and I are one. But they are 2, but they are one. They are one flesh. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And this is what they didn't like about him, is because he made himself equal to the Father. So for that, they crucified him. And now today, you'll get those that want to take away the deity of Yahuwah, to say he's not Yahuwah. And so you'll get a lot of people in the Torah movement that will take away the deity, and it's dangerous. Be very wary be very cautious of that doctrine, because there are many speaking that doctrine. So, and they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets. So they shall be 8 boards. So again, what does he want to say to us with the number 8? The number 8 is the number of new life. It's the renewal. It's the restoration of the old man. So the old man must become renewed, must become new. It is to arise from weakness. So he creates a new thing. So number 8, we know, is the number of new beginnings. It's the number of new life. Why? Because there were 8 people in Noah's ark. And 8 is also the number of, on the 8th day, Father made a covenant with them to be circumcised. So it's referring to the circumcision of the heart. So it's also a number for covenant. So it's a number for a covenant, because on the 8th day he made covenant. And so it's new life, and it's to be able to bring covenant. And so he says, and they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver. Here we go with the silver again. The trying of man's hearts, the redemption, the truth, the atonement, because then you get number 16. This number is 8 plus 8, which refers to a multiplication of resurrection and circumcision. It shows how a person's character is formed and renewed to what Yahuwah requires. So you see, we're going to be tested and tried in the fire to come out like the silver, so that we can be renewed in our character. So we got to go through that. We got to go through that fire. We got to go through that testing and trying, so that he perfects our character, so that we can become that tabernacle that carries his presence. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards on one side of the dwelling place, and 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the dwelling place, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the dwelling place for the extreme parts westward. So we've already looked at the number 5, as we said, that 5 being the number of grace, and with the middle bar in the midst of the boards going through from end to end, and overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold as holders for the bars. Overlay the bars with gold. And you shall raise up the dwelling place according to its pattern, which you were shown on the mountain. Now, this is important for us to understand, because at the end of the day, we must understand that everything about this tabernacle, and this is why I'm saying our Father is so specific. When Father gives me numbers, it's like when we did that whole, when I came back from Israel last year, and everything that the Father was speaking to me as we were doing the counting of the Omer, and the numbers that he gave, and then my flight number, and then the numbers on that specific day, and when I picked up a key, and it was on the actual day of the 44th day of the counting of the Omer, and all the prophetic things that the Father was explaining, all the numbers, everything that came together, everything. Father is specific in the things that he speaks, because this is why I get so sad when I think about the Torah movement losing the essence of the prophetic. That's the Spirit. And then we want to get so into knowledge that we forget about the prophetic side of Abba Yahuwah, because Abba Yahuwah is so prophetic. I mean, he blows me away that he is so prophetic. But then people want to put down the prophetic, and they don't always understand the prophetic. And this is why sometimes people battle with me, because I see the prophetic in so many different things. If I walk and I pick up things, like even when I'm in Israel and I'm walking and I'm picking up things, Father's giving me an entire message, because this is the way I walk with him. And now, if you have a look at this tabernacle, he's telling you everything that he's done is according to his pattern. And so, if we haven't looked at the number 5, I just want to look at the number 5 again. It's favor bestowed on those that are not worthy to receive favor. It's to be merciful, to have pity, compassion, and patience. The number for redemption, the number of atonement, the number for the presence of Yahuwah, pure, perpetual, true worship, anointing, holy, separated unto Yahuwah. And this is the month that we are in. We are in the month of this number 5. We are in the month of this hey. Now, I could have gone really deep in this, and for every number gone and given you even the Hebrewic understanding of that number, but I thought, my Father, that is going so deep. So I didn't even go as deep as that, which if I were to have brought that, it would have even brought even deeper revelation. Because the Father, and everything that he does everything so profoundly perfect. And so he says in verse 31, and you shall make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet material and fine woven linen and work of a skilled workman made with cherubim. And so here we see that even the fine linen, we had a look at that fine linen, where it's the linen being the everything that's been made is made of fine linen, which is the 100% frequency that the Father is having everything being made of this fine woven linen, which is going to be the blue, the purple, the scarlet. And you shall put it on the 4 columns of acacia wood, overlaid with gold, their hooks of gold, and the 4 sockets of silver. I think we'll carry on next week with this.